Hey guys, this is Matthew Hitchcock, and for my paper analysis, I'm doing David Foster Wallace's Incarnation of Burned Children. Here is my audience, and here we go. So, the way the story starts is the father is out in the yard at a tenant's house, and he's hanging a new door on the tenant's house when he hears screams from his son and his wife coming from inside. He enters the house to find the stove lit, the pot on the floor, and steaming hot water coming off his son's head and chest, and he can tell that his shoulders are burnt. The wife's frantically dabbing the scalding hot water off of the son, and the author here describes the diaper sagging, which is going to be important later. We see the diaper sagging, and since the water poured on him, we can assume that the water got in the diaper, so that's going to be an important detail later. The father threw all the plates and everything out of the sink and began to pour cold water all over his child to try and cool down the water. So then, the author describes the tenant's door only being hung on half a hinge and is slightly moving back and forth in the breeze. This is going to be important detail later because he's using the door as a symbol and imagery for something that's happening in the story. Like I said, that we'll see at the end. He also describes a bird sitting in a tree watching the whole situation and his head being cocked to the side, which is also a bit of imagery that he's that's going to symbolize something later. So after pouring cold water over the boy's body, and his head and chest went from red to pink, but the father can see that the boy is badly burned on his right shoulder and on his right arm. Also, no matter how hard the mother or the father tried, the boy continued to scream and whimper even after they poured cold water all over him. So they began to continue looking at the child, trying to console him by singing sing-songs and whatnot, and they see a puff of steam come from the child's diaper. It's then that they realize that the diaper has a pool of scalding hot water still remaining in it from where the pot pulled on the boy. The father and the mother can't believe that they missed such a detail when they were trying to clean up their child. The water was pooled in his diaper and was burning him very badly. The parents had done everything right. They'd done everything to try and make sure that the little boy wasn't burning anymore, but they forgot to check the saggy diaper. Once again, this is where the author was describing the saggy diaper in the beginning, and the saggy diaper that the author described showed that it did have water in it, which is an important detail later. So, when the diaper was tried to be removed, it was tough for the parents to remove. When they finally got it off, they realized just how badly the boy was burned. And the author then begins to describe the boy who has now been laid down in the crib with a fresh gauze diaper on. After that, the author then describes the tenant's door once more, only being hung on half a hinge and still slightly moving in the breeze. He then describes the scene of the boy laying down in the crib and looking off into the distance and looking at his father while he's holding on to his father's thumb, but the boy isn't looking at the father. He's looking at the father but looking past him, which can make one think that maybe the boy is dying or the boy is not necessarily there, because the father can tell that he's looking at him but he's not really seeing him. So, the author then describes once more the door hanging off its hinge at the tenant's house, and the father finally pulls the child out of the crib and decides to take him to the ER, and they start peeling out of the driveway. It describes the truck leaving the driveway, but this time when they describe the tenant's house, it says that the door has come off its hinge and has hit the ground. This is a symbol that the author uses to describe that the boy has just died. So we see through the entire story that as long as the hinge and the door was up, though it wasn't on its full hinge, since the door was on half a hinge and still moving, the boy was still alive. But we see that when the hinge finally gave way and the door fell over, that was the symbol that the boy had died. So, In conclusion to this story, we see that an accident happened and the parents responded by trying to help their child, but they missed some obvious points and didn't act correctly in other areas, and by the time they had decided to act, either by changing the diaper or by finally deciding to go to the ER, it was too late and their mistake cost their son's life. The story is not pleasant, but it uses imagery and symbols that can be used physically and emotionally to describe a situation, and I think that it shows that life can be cruel, even with a boy dying by a simple mistake or by a simple accident. You can think you're doing things right and still make a mistake that costs a life, and the biggest moral to this story is that parenthood is not easy, and you can do everything right, and one mistake can even cost your child's life. So, the sources I used for this, trying to kind of help me get into the scene, was from Caroline Healy of Short Story Ireland. Like I said, she had an assessment that really set the mood and set the scene for what this story was. And the second was the shortstorystation.wordpress.com. And this story broke down about how it related to, or this analysis broke down how the story was related to parenthood and that life is far from perfect. So this is my analysis of Incarnations of Burned Children, and thank you guys for watching.